Dear Coach Riley, my name is Cicero Shears. I'm a sophomore at USC Pasadena, currently in Professor Belasco's class on mindset. I hope you and your family become well adjusted to USC in Southern California. Thank you for choosing to become our new football coach. I know everyone associated with the university loves having you on campus and is ecstatic about the future of our football team with you as the leader. The student body and alumni are primed for the new chapter you're writing with the team, and we will be there in force on September 3rd in the Coliseum to cheer you on. As you are finding out, USC is a very special place, and I'm honored to be a student here. I'm the 15th member of my extended family to attend USC, with my parents and siblings having gone here. My family and I could not be more supportive, proud members of the chosen family. I have been a diehard USC fan my entire life, and I'm thankful to live out my own USC journey as a student. I love SC because of the people and the positive difference the school is making. I do my best every day to bring my passion and love for USC, motivating all those around me to feel the same about this great university as I do. And I recognize the responsibility this degree places on all of us, to serve, open doors, and make a difference for others. That's the magic of the Trojan family. Regarding Professor Belasco's class, it would be one of my greatest experiences at USC to learn from you, and I know everyone would greatly appreciate it. I hope to possibly meet you in person one day soon. I guess one day is today. Please welcome USC's head football coach, Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Good to have you, man. You know, it seems like since you came to USC, it's been like a nonstop sprint. The draft starts tomorrow. You had the spring game on Saturday.
We did.
Let's put football aside for a second. As a family and a person, how has the move and transition been? Have you had a chance to exhale yet?
Not yet. Hopefully soon. You guys still hear me okay? Yeah. The move's been great. I mean, Southern California, this is a little different than what I grew up in. I grew up in a small town in West Texas, 5,000 people. We had one stoplight.
You got to give them the name.
Yeah, Muleshoe, Texas. Believe it or not, yes, that's actually true. So this move has been very unique, been like a dream. It's difficult to move so publicly and so suddenly. That's kind of our lives. But yeah, to come out here, be able to experience everything with the family and kind of obviously all the cool opportunities out here has been great.
You settled in the South Bay. We're in the South Bay as well. Now, for those of you who may not follow college football or sports, let's give you a little context. Coach Riley's move to USC was one of the most unexpected and audacious moves maybe in college football history, a bombshell that really no one saw coming. In assembling the best candidates for the USC job, your name wasn't really mentioned because no one thought you would be available or would be willing to make a move except maybe Mike and Brandon. Here's why it was so unexpected for you. In your 5 years as head coach at Oklahoma, your record was 55-10, and that ranks as the top winning percentage in Oklahoma history by any coach. The Sooners won 4 conference championships in the 5 seasons with 3 appearances in the college football playoff, which is for the top 4 teams, and top 10 finishes in each season. So you had a strong foundation, incoming talent, momentum. The table was set for at least another decade. And in a very short period of time, some say less than 24 hours, you left and came to USC, which leads to this question on taking risk and making big decisions. We all have to make big decisions in our lives, especially in our careers. Take us inside that decision, not when discussions, but your process, how you weighed the options and why coaching at USC was an opportunity that you just couldn't pass up.
Yeah, the process was surreal. We all have moments in our lives where we kind of feel like our lives planned out, right? Like we kind of think, all right, it's this step, it's that step, like in our minds, this is what's going to happen. And college coaching is typically not something that goes hand in hand with. And we had just built a house, kind of a forever type house in Norman. We rented, it took damn near 3 years to build. We were in it about 4 months. So that was interesting, but we loved it there. Wasn't certainly looking to leave. And then when this opportunity presented itself, it hit me different. It did. We've had, been fortunate. We'd had some professional teams through the years that came after us, other colleges that really didn't move the needle at all for us as a family, or really for me professionally. And then when this one came across, it was unique. It was interesting. I remember the more I got into it and started kind of thinking about the opportunities professionally here, I was kind of hit with this feeling of like that if we don't take this, we're settling at the end of the day for something that may not be the best for us. Now, settling in that regard was still settling for something really good. Sometimes when you settle, it doesn't mean, I think there's like this context that one has to be bad and one has to be good, right? Like good and evil. And it's not necessarily the case. You may have something that's fantastic. And a lot of times those are the toughest ones to leave. Those are the toughest decisions. I mean, if you're at a job that you don't like or a part of it, it's easy to take a step to something that's great. Do you have the guts to do it when it's something that is going well, and maybe there is some stability, or is that kind of that comfort of within? But I've never been a settler. That's never been our mentality. I don't, people talk about like pressures of this job or taking another job. Like I think it's all in the mindset and how you look at these. Is it pressure to do well, or do you see an opportunity to do something just extremely different and unique? And I think that's what we felt here. And so process wise, I don't get too complicated with it. I'm not going to get on a whiteboard and all the pluses, minuses. I've typically, with big decisions, whether it's somebody we hire or a job we take, I'm pretty decisive. I'm not a big back and forth person. I think deep down, we all know what we want to do. We have a few key people that we talk to. And I think having those people in your lives that can tell you, give you perspective, tell you whatever they really believe is best for you, not necessarily what you want to hear, is very, very important. And yeah, I mean, the decision to come was a lot easier than actually executing the decision, which a lot of times I think those tough ones, that's the part. Like if you get past the fear of doing it, the fear of the unknown, you want to do it, but can you push yourself to actually step up and do it? And it's not easy. And this one was not easy to do.
Clark, how did the conversation go with you, and how long did it take before you said I'm coming with?
It was about 30 seconds.
Told you, decisive, right?
And it's sort of a hallmark and great advice for students, particularly ones who are going out and getting their first jobs and starting their careers. You're going to have options, hopefully a lot of them. And so it's deciding among those and what's really best for you, and not sort of tuning out what the noise is. It's interesting because with as many entrepreneurs and people we've talked to over the years, so many of them have said the best ride, the most rewarding, the most fun, the most proud moments are the rise up,
100%.
more than the plateau and maintaining. It really is, you gain more there.
And I would say too, I mean, like for those of you in this room, I mean, like you're at USC. I mean, name the thousands of other universities that you could have went to that would have been a hell of a lot easier than coming here. Right. So I mean, none of you settled on coming here. So why would you change when you go out? And I think the other thing too that I think is extremely as important is, if you want to make it big and really do something, the conservative route rarely gets you there. Rarely. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be reckless. Obviously, you got to be strategic about it. You got to make good, sound decisions, but the conservative route normally gets you conservative results, in my opinion.
You have to take some risk, and particularly get in the habit of doing it while you're young. Again, not reckless, but the more conservative you can play it. I sort of fell into that trap a little bit, being a lawyer and going to a firm. You get used to success that you can depend on, whereas you have to get used to taking micro failures. And by the way, everyone in this class probably is not used to that. You have learned the system, you've gotten A's, you've gotten high SAT and ACT scores to get here. You're probably not that comfortable with it. That's why even more, you got to do it now, and you have to get used to it. Do you have, this course is on mindset. So it's resilience, gratitude, mindfulness, all these topics, success and failure, things that, again, students haven't necessarily experienced. The flip side. Do you have, and they just turned in an assignment, which is their personal philosophy, which took the whole semester. Do you have an articulated personal philosophy? I have more a mantra by which you live your life.
Yeah, I have a lot of core beliefs. I would say one, though, that we've really shared with the team. We've had a guy working with our team and with our staff thus for a number of years. We brought him here to USC. He's a guy named Tim Kite. That's phenomenal. I'd encourage you look up some of the things that he's done online. He's phenomenal for leadership. He's been in business for a long time, does a lot of work with professional sports teams, some of the biggest companies in the world. It's all about mindset. His part of what he teaches us, has taught us as coaches, our players, kind of installed systematically within our program is it's a formula. He calls it E plus R equals O, and it's event plus response equals outcome. And it's really unique in how he teaches it, because he teaches all of us to understand there's going to be events in our lives that we cannot necessarily control. The one thing that we can control is our response, all right, when those events happen. And with that combination of the two is going to determine the outcome. And there's so many different ways that you can flip that. Like if you want better outcomes, like change your response. You may not necessarily change the events. You can't control the events, but your response and taking ownership of your response in that outcome. And so to create that outcome. And so I think, being able to take ownership is such an important thing in this day and age. And I think it's very important as you move up, as you guys, and again, Professor Belasco just said it. I mean, you wouldn't be here if you hadn't already been successful at some point in your lives. But as you really start taking ownership of those R's and your goals become bigger and bigger, understanding that it's not just going to be the circumstances, it's what you do with it. And so I believe that. I just believe we have a big impact, and sometimes we want to put blame somewhere else when something doesn't go our way or something doesn't shake out the way we want it to, as opposed to continuing to control the things we can. And there's many, but that's one of the first ones that comes to my mind.
You can always say, why do we talk about sports? Why do people use sports cliches? I'm tired of sports as sort of a symbol for business and for life. And the reason is pretty simple. One is because these theories and practices and techniques are tested in rugged environments, high stakes environments, and they get immediate feedback. You win the play, you lose the play. You win the game, you lose the game. You set a world record, right, Benjamin? You don't set a world record. It's just that evident. No, I'm saying the feedback that you get as a runner, as a football player, is fairly immediate. That's why these techniques are tested in that type of environment. Speaking of competitiveness, your competitive philosophy with the team. We teach competitiveness not as someone wins and someone loses. It's more striving, how to be a healthy striver, how to win, mostly against yourself, but you play in a win and loss business. How do you communicate your competitive philosophy from the coaches to the position groups to the individual players?
Well, I think it's establishing first that like competitiveness is what you do every day. Like I think there's sometimes like a misconception that a guy shows up for a game or a guy shows up, whether it's a sporting event, whatever it is, but in one moment you're competitive. And like in that moment, when it comes to, I want to go get that job, right? That interview, yeah, I'm competitive. I want to get it, or I want to make that play on the field, or whatever it is. You confuse. Everybody wants it in that moment, right? There's nobody that does anything that applies for a job, all right, that's that's got a huge project that they're trying to get past in their business. It's got a sporting event, whatever it is. Everybody wants to win in that moment. True competitiveness is the process through that, and were you that competitive leading up to it that put yourself in position to be competitive and then ultimately successful in the moment. And so I think we've tried to stress with our guys is if you're we use the term like don't be a dog on Saturdays. If you're gonna be a dog, you gotta be a dog every day of the week, right? And that's kind of our message to them is some guys want to show up and be tough and talk and do this and be this kind of player on Saturdays, but Monday through Friday, not necessarily. And that's fake. It's phony. It's hollow. And I think true competitiveness comes from your ability to prepare, all right, your ability to do it day in and day out, because that's where you win. That's where you get a leg up on people. You outlast people. You outwork people. And it's the sum of all those days that makes the difference in the end, not just game day or not just that kind of decision day on a big job or whatever have you in any business, any format that you want to talk about. It's the process up to it. And did you truly, we also talk about the moments leading up to it. If you use the football game as the analogy, we're not trying to win the game. We're trying to win the individual moments in the game, that the sum of it is going to be winning the game at the end of the day. And I think that perspective separates the true competitors from the people that just want to do it just on game day or just when the lights are on.
So a couple of concepts there that you can actually use. If it's coach, or whether it's Misty Copeland, the dancer, or Kobe here, Gary Vaynerchuk, they always talk about the process and practice. And if you can figure out a way to make practice fun, engaging, not routine, not the same thing every day, and love and relish that process, that's where greatness is built.
Yes.
Mediocrity is, why I'm a beginning piano player, is because I don't have the discipline to play the hard stuff, the scales every day. Wherever Mircea is, world-class pianists, world-class athletes, they do the little things, and they have to do them every day, even when it's boring, and especially when it's boring. So practice. Well, I want to talk about recruiting now a little bit, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask questions as well, but let's start with recruiting. It's the lifeblood of any team and any organization. You are known both as an offensive genius and a recruiting powerhouse. Can you share how you communicate the benefits of coming to USC and playing for you? Give us, you've heard my why USC pitch. I'm happy to share that, but why? Now that you're selling people on a USC education opportunity to play football here, why USC?
Well, the first pitch, it's pretty simple. I left one of the best jobs in the country to come here. So obviously, what I'm selling, I just made that same decision myself and moved my family halfway across the country to do it. So that's as much as anything I could say. I think my actions and the actions of our staff show that. USC is unique. In any type of sales, and recruiting is sales. And I think, I don't know that there's many jobs in the world that sales is not some part of that job. You're always going to be in better position when the product you have, all right, is different than all the other products out there. And the reality in college football is most programs, and not that they're bad, but most programs fall into a category of a good football program, a lot of resources, facilities, all that stuff, stadium, all that, good fan base, all that. All right, where the academics are pretty good, and most of them are in a small market college town. You could take 95% of college football and throw them into that bucket. And that's great, and they're all really good. Where USC is different, all right, you've got undoubtedly one of the greatest college football tradition or programs, history traditions of all time. However you measure it, wins, national championships, Heisman's, All-Americans, draft picks, NFL Hall of Famers, without a doubt, one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the history of the game. Okay, you've got Ivy League level academics here, which are a huge separating point in our world, because the reality is most high level college football programs do not have an academic reputation like USC. They do not have an education that is comprehensive like USC, and the degree that stands out when you throw them all on the table. And then the last part is the big market, right? The LA, the big stage, NIL, and a lot of those things have changed our sport. And we're in a pretty unique opportunity to be able to capitalize on those as a football program and as a university. And so those 3 things combined, name one other school that's got those 3 things. Name one. There's a few that have 2. There is not any other school in the country that has all 3. And that's called a niche. All right. That's called, we have part of the market that nobody else has. And when you can show that to players, show that to families, right, that's fine. Like it almost puts you to a point where, you're putting people in a position where this is going to be really, really tough to turn down. And I can obviously relate to that. I couldn't turn it down.
He hit
everybody ready to sign up. Let's go.
Who's ready to go? Who's ready to go? Walk on, start next week.
I'll start with this guy right there.
Could you imagine? Oh, could you imagine? Just go deep, Rye. Stop when you hit the peristyle.
That's right.
It really, I enjoy helping with recruiting and talking with families, and it's a proposition that you don't realize is that unique. If you talk just academics, in football, when I say football programs, I mean, you win a national championship, you compete every year, you probably aren't employed very long. There's us, Notre Dame. Stanford's not a football school, but a great school. And then from there, you like, what else? You've got the most diversity of any school in the world. I think 115, 120 countries are represented. I can't remember the number of languages spoken. So diversity means diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of ideas, diversity of offerings. Hey, great. How's your school of cinema? How's your school of music? How's your engineering school? How's your undergraduate business program? They don't have those. And then, as you mentioned, being in a world-class city, as a college town, where are you going to intern? What companies are coming to those schools to interview? Google, Facebook, Apple, Tesla, you name the people in our backyard, they're not going to those college towns. So that means the jobs and things that you can do when you're not playing sports, you're not studying. And then being in a world-class place means you can go to Laker game, Clipper game, you know, all the things that you have in a city like this. And one of my final points, in addition to being 72 degrees in January, is who are you going to learn from? You've seen who's come through this class. They're not taking 3 connections to go to Ithaca. They either live or come through LA. That's why we can get anybody. Those are the practitioners and experts that you're going to learn from, both as guest speakers, but also your adjunct professors. Those are people who are practicing, starting tech companies, building companies. So it really is a unique place, and it's not something I think any of us should take for granted. We're so glad to have you here, obviously. What are 3 things you've learned from selling a vision and recruiting talent that are applicable to almost any sales, situation? We have a course on sales mindset, by the way. Has anyone taken sales mindset? Awesome course, right?
Yeah, I would say you have to believe in, it helps when you believe in what you're selling and putting yourself in a position where you do. You need to be an expert on that subject. And then you have to be relentless. No, one of the best lessons I first learned in recruiting is no means maybe. And the number of crazy stories over the year where it was no, and we had one when I was at a previous school that was a really good offensive lineman we were recruiting. It came down to us in another school, and it was one of those we were up on the phone. This was back when you actually had the real signing days. Changed a lot since then. And this was back when guys now literally they just text us a picture of the, like you do anything else, they text us a picture of the papers, and it's over. It used to be the drama of the fax machine, right? You guys probably don't know what the hell a fax machine is, all right? But you would literally wait by a fax machine, and if their papers came through, you got them, and you didn't know they were coming in until you heard the beep of the fax machine. And so anyways, really good offensive lineman, comes down to us, another school. It's a pretty heated recruiting battle. That night we go to bed, we think he's going to the other school. Next morning, we start to kind of maybe gain a little momentum, and the kid calls us and he says he was at a different location than his parents. So back then he had to sign it, fax it to his parent. If they were under 18 years old, the parent had to sign it and fax it to us, and it was done. Had to have both signatures. So he calls us, says, all right, I'm going to sign with you guys. We're like, that's awesome, right? So he said, I'm faxing it to my mom. Faxes over to the mom. Mom calls us, all right, I got it. I'm signing it. I think I'm about to fax it. So hits them. She says, all right, I'm faxing it. Nothing comes through. So like, oh, all right, something's going on. So we call the mom back. She's like, yeah, the other coaches got on the phone with me during that. She goes, I don't think this is the right place. I think he needs to go to the other one. We're like, did you already send it? She's like, yeah, but it obviously didn't go through. Or she said, obviously it didn't go through. And we said, what do you mean? You just changed your mind? And she said, yeah, I'm not sure. I went ahead and signed the other one to the other school and sent it to. So basically what it comes down to is whoever comes in first, you get a thin CA, that's who you get. And we said, well, what if they come into both? And she just said, well, let God handle it. And I said, please God. And not right after we got the phone, it dinged, came through ours. We got it to the NCAA quickly and ended up signing the kids. It was crazy. But there's saying that all to say, like, I think you got to be careful getting wrapped up emotionally in sales. Like a lot of times there's going to be the roller coaster of it. And if you can stay steady and confident, and as long as you feel any potential, I think that confidence rubs off on people in sales. I think when you get desperate, they can feel that, and it's kind of almost a lack of confidence that almost can turn those people off. So I think those are the biggest keys that we've lived by.
Is your pitch always the same, or do you vary it depending on the audience?
I think
And
that's
what's important?
Yeah, I think there's a
particular
fine line. I think you got your core values, right, that stay the same, but certainly, yeah, you definitely, you want it to fit your audience. You do, and your ability to adapt to that, not only just with what you see on the surface, but even in conversations. Like I've gone in with certain families, and you're talking to a family and you're kind of getting to know them, and maybe a conversation you had in your mind thought was going to go this way, and you got to pivot a little bit, and the topic changes, the tone changes. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be ready for that. You got to know your material. But yeah, I think the best people in sales can adapt.
Yeah, I mean, you have your basics, but you want to tailor it to the listener, right? If a listener really cares about the cinema school or internships, you're going to focus on those. You also focus on the decision makers. In his business, there are parents and family members and peers that influence. That's why when you see the sideline of a recruiting day, someone may bring 12 people with him or her to a game because they're bringing all the people that may have an effect on that decision. And in recruiting, especially, whenever you can, be the last voice they hear, as he just said, because 18-year-olds are fickle, and they may see something different when you hang up. So one of the most cherished things I get to do at USC, in addition to teaching, is to recruit in several sports, and football in particular. And really is one of the things. I mean, I see a former student who's still here, but he was in this class a couple of years ago, Raylan Goforth. I met him as a high school senior. And so to get to see this, kid come to USC, flourish, blossom on the field, off the field, it really makes me, sort of, my heart is full when I see students and student athletes. This past weekend, the week before, I went to 2 students that sat in these chairs and got married. They sat here 2 years ago, a little young, but that's all right. They're well matched. But back to Raylan, like I was with his family when he accepted at the Strand House. And I'll never forget him, here's a geeky professor with this kid trying to tell him why USC is a great place. He's like, all his brothers got together, we took a picture, and I'll never forget that. So it's just that you're graduating this year, right, May? Fall? All right, so we got you for another
I didn't
chance.
see you back there.
Yeah.
That's good. I'll sign off that you were in attendance today.
He does it all. I've seen him pass on campus one night. We had Earth, Wind, and Fire. I just passed him like, Earth, Wind, and Fire's coming in like 10 minutes. He's like, I'll be there. He dropped everything. But it's awesome to do that. It's a pretty hefty thing you're doing when you really think about it. You're taking someone's child and sort of saying, I'm going to be partially responsible for your kid's development for the next 4 or 5 years. And it brings up some tough situations, particularly now. I mean, that's a relationship that especially parents are going to count on in players. Let's talk about the transfer portal. For those of you who don't know what the transfer portal is, there are new rules that allow student athletes to transfer from one school to another and still be able to play immediately. In the past, you'd have to sit out a year typically, unless you had graduated and earned your degree. So now there are student athletes moving all the time. Talk about the transfer portal. How has it sort of transformed recruiting? What are the benefits of it, and what are some of the disadvantages of it?
Yeah, I think it's put probably, and this is, I think, a good thing. It's put more pressure on your culture within your program. So the way I would compare it to you all, like, show of hands, how many of you want to run your own business one day? I figured there'd be quite a few, right? All right, so that means you want to be responsible for people, all right, and you understand that the majority of these people that work for you in this future business are going to be able to go leave as they please, take another job, be courted by other people. That's going to be the nature of the business. And how are you going to retain? All right, how are you going to retain people? How are you going to create consistency? And I think one of the big things is you got to create a culture that people don't want to leave. That they, people want to know what their role is. They want to know what they're doing well. They want to know, do they have a chance for upward mobility? And then I think they want to know the overall vision, and then like, how do they figure into it? And I think, and on top of that, I think the last thing is people want to be treated well. I mean, people want to be treated well, and you can push people expect greatness, help them get to a place that they can't go by themselves, and still treat them well. Those are not separate of each other. And so I think the portal has put pressure on college football programs. And I think the best ones have held in there strong because of the culture that they have. It's changed a lot for us. It's been a tool that we've used a lot here at USC to try to rebuild this roster in a hurry, but it's also created challenges. Raylan would echo this. One of the things we've told our guys, this will be the most unique roster in the history of USC football. And they've been playing football around here for a couple of years. And so kind of how do you take all these different people together from different backgrounds, mesh them together, which again, I think goes back to leadership. And every one of you that wants to run a business, you're going to get faced with that task, right? You are going to get faced with that task. And how important is it for you to see the different relationships that form, how the group is running, how you can optimize, all right, the connections within that office, within that program are so important. And the portal is going to be a game changer for us in that regard.
Just imagine this year with, what do you have, 13, 15 already, I think, committed and transferred in, coming from different, in the past, it was you went from high school, you're handed off to your college coach, and the college program built you and molded you for 4 to 5 years, and transfers were the exception. And now you've got people coming from all different schools, Alabama, Oregon, OU. Here, they've already learned a different system other than Oklahoma, obviously. They may be here for 1 year. They're not building over 4 or 5 years. So it is a challenge to the culture. And then, and by the way, USC and Ole Miss are sort of ranked 1, 2 in terms of who's had the most success out of the transfer portal. How many more players, student athletes will you add before August?
We'll take a few more. I mean, we've built a really good roster up to this point, but we've got to add a few more bodies. So we'll still take maybe even as many as low double digits in the numbers. It's kind of, you never know. I mean, one day somebody's not in, next day somebody is in. But the big thing for us has been we've worked our tail off the last 4 months to build a really good culture, and our guys within the walls have been phenomenal. So then once you get your culture established, the key is start bringing in people that are going to add to it, and you got to avoid the people that might take away from it, because all that hard work, I've seen it. You can work so hard to build that. You bring a couple in the wrong pieces into your organization, it can gut it. I mean, in a hurry, and so that's something we're trying to be very aware of.
I'm thinking about the flip side of these tough conversations. In business, there's always going to be times when either someone, in the employment sense, is terminated or leaves for whatever reason. In the athletic sense, particularly when you're taking over a new program, you may have players who don't fit the scheme, who don't fit the system, who may not have the opportunity that they thought they had. And you're not dealing with, a 45-year-old mediocre salesperson. You're dealing with an 18 to 22-year-old or 20-year-old who you've got to communicate a tough message to. What type of values do they bring to that discussion? Because think about that. Your head coach is having a conversation where maybe this isn't the right place for you, or they're having that conversation that maybe this isn't the right place for me. What do you bring to that conversation?
Yeah, it's no fun. I mean, listen, it is no fun. It's one of the worst parts of any job, but it's also necessary if you're going to have this type of role. I think the number one thing is you be honest. Be upfront, be to the point, and you got to understand what the person's going through. And typically, most of us, if you are going to be competitive, if you are going to take some chances, you're probably going to experience that on some point, the other side yourself. So being respectful of them, being again upfront and honest to the point. But it's, I'll tell you this: sometimes as a leader, you got to kind of psych yourself up for those a little bit, to be honest. I mean, because they're no fun. And we've all had those conversations with somebody where like we've got that little tingling in our stomach, right? Like we know this thing's coming, we really don't want to do it, and I've got a little anxiety about it. It's not going to be real fun, but you got to push yourselves to do it. And those things are necessary. And I think you go back and trust your process. If you've gone through a process of understanding that this isn't going to be the right fit for the organization or for that person, you got to take confidence in that. But I think the other thing too is you never know, even in that moment, where your paths might cross again. I've seen this a lot of time in coaching where sometimes guys that have a chance to hire somebody or maybe fire somebody at some point, and then later on that person's the head of the organization, or you want to get something done with them, and now they'll remember that you do it with respect, and that you take the time to be thoughtful in the way those things are handled.
I've done it a lot in the employment context, and there are ways to sort of get your mind around it where it's a conversation. Certainly there's going to be an end to the conversation, you know where that's going, but the conversation is, if you're not flourishing here, if you're not thriving here, if you're not enjoying it, and that usually comes across actually in performance, then let's help you find the best place for you, where you can start, where you can thrive, where you can be a superstar on a team. Clarity is kindness. Directness is kindness. Respect is kindness. But bringing those things there, Pete Carroll once said, I said, how do you have those conversations? Well, we were up there doing some observations, like the last cut, when they got down to their roster. And he says, I have every conversation when we release a player directly, because I think if this is the last time they play football, I want it to be with kindness, and I want it to be a good feeling for them. And I just think that's just something that they earn from putting everything into it. Let's talk about another new rule that is causing waves and could be an advantage for a place like USC. That's NIL, name, image, and likeness. So how many of you have heard NIL, name, image, likeness? Okay. For those of you who don't know what it is, it means that previously amateur athletes, college players, particularly in the revenue sports, were not allowed to make money on their own name, image, likeness, fame. And typically it would only affect a few people. But now it's been ruled that is allowed. And so players now can receive compensation. There's only like 3 guardrails for this in California. One, it's no pay for play. You can't use it as a recruiting inducement. And you have to do something. They don't look at the value of the something, but you have to actually do something. How has NIL sort of reshaped the landscape, and why should USC, I'm not saying we're there yet, but why should USC be a dominant player with NIL?
It's been one of the rules in our game that's changed everything. I mean, it's you certainly understand the benefit, and I mean, I think any of you in this room, if a company came to you and said, hey, we want you to shoot this commercial, we're going to pay you this money, and somebody told you couldn't do it, you'd probably be a little bit offended by it. And so you can understand it certainly from the athlete's standpoint, and we do too. It has seeped into recruiting in college football because it is so competitive, which we all knew that it was going to. So it's a slippery slope. It is. Because you want guys to be able to benefit, and it's going to change the model of business, both I think for college athletic departments and even potentially universities, and will continue to do so. It's just it's an absolute game changer. But I think like anything, you can either sit there when there's a huge change and fret about it, agree with it, don't agree with it, whatever, or you immediately start thinking about solutions. Like how can, in my mindset when NIL came about was, how can we make this an advantage in our program? Immediately, how like this is just another area that we can beat people, another area that we can separate ourselves. And that's been our mindset with it. And really within 2 ways. I mean, obviously the opportunities here in LA, the different businesses, all of that out here are a huge advantage for us. Again, go back to the small market versus large market talk. And then the flip side of it too, like I see something like this as an advantage to, again, show off like your culture and show off your teamwork. Like find a way to take something like NIL, because what's that going to do? It's going to divide a lot of locker rooms. And again, go back to the analogy of you all that want to run your own businesses. All right. Guess what? You're not going to pay everybody in that business the same thing. Okay. It's not going to happen. Guess what? Every time you offer a job to somebody, they're going to ask for more money. I've offered a lot of jobs to a lot of people. I can think of everybody kind of on one hand the number of times that people didn't ask for more compensation or me to think about giving them more compensation. Okay, money is important to people. All right, it is. And so how are you, the fact there is going to be imbalance within your organizations, how do you take something like that could be divisive, and how do you flip it and make it something that is even becomes inclusive and becomes a way to separate yourself or your team from all the other companies or businesses out there? And that's so we've kind of attacked it from that mindset, used some ways to kind of help bring us together. And fortunately for us, we've got a team and a program, a bunch of guys here right now that are not about themselves and that want to help, that want to share. You've seen examples of some of the guys on our team that have done well in NIL, that have been able to share it with other sports on campus, or our guys here. And there's been a lot of other things that have been done in that realm that maybe have not been public. So it all goes back to, if you got the right people in the organization and you got the right type of leadership, you'll be able to navigate major changes like that.
I mean, it was overdue for student athletes to get some form of compensation. It just was absurd how much money was being made in big time college sports,
Yes.
television contracts and conference contracts, and the players are scrounging for food money sometimes. So it's about time. It is the Wild West right now, it seems like, and some schools are doing exceptionally well at it. So just to give you an example, so you may have read about Michigan State, for example, has an alum who's donated a ton of money to build an arena. And so he also set up an NIL program where every football and basketball player receives $500 a month to tweet and be on social media in support of his mortgage business. Every student athlete on those two teams. And that's used as recruiting. You come to this school and you're guaranteed X $1,000 a month because everyone on the team gets it. So that's team-based. Individually, I saw Caleb Williams giving out Dre headphones on social media. He's got to deal with Dre with Beats, I guess. The star players, the position players are probably be more likely to get it. But it is now where donors can say, I will put up, first of all, there are companies, obviously, that, arm's length transactions that can say, we will pay this amount of money for these athletes to support our business. Social media, personal appearances, commercials, all those things are open now that they weren't before. Then there's ones that just want to support the university and just say, we will pay this amount to these teams or everybody for being a student athlete. And that's where USC, I don't think has come there yet, but it's getting there. And that's where being in this city with the amount of opportunities and businesses here and the visibility of sort of USC when it's clicking, we should be able to compete there better than anybody.
Absolutely. And that was part of the vision in coming here, is knowing what we could build, especially with all the changes that have happened.
I want students, particularly in class, who's got some questions for Coach Riley? Make them good. Raise your hands, don't be bashful. Where am the regular crew? All right. I see some people from 2021, 2020 coming. They were all invited because they got robbed of the full experience during COVID.
Oh, good.
Hello, thank you for coming to talk to us. My name is Giovanni Miranda. I'm a junior, and I'm looking forward to the season. It should be fun. I just had a quick question as far as you have to deal with a bunch of meetings every single day, a bunch of the schedule. I feel like is pretty crazy, but I just want to know what do you do to manage all of that stress that you might have, and are there any tips that you have for us? Are there any books that you read, or are there any videos that you can recommend to us?
Yeah, I think managing the stress. I think a couple of things. One, as a leader, you have to create boundaries. I've got some time. I have to be flexible with most of my time because things change, and part of your job as a leader is you got to be the one to be a little bit of everything. You've got to mold yourself to fit the situations that happen. But I also have some time that I have boundaries that basically, unless the building is on fire and about to burn down, don't call me, don't mess with me. And sometimes it's when I'm at the office too, right? I think creating those boundaries, I think obviously the living a good life outside of what you do, having a life that fulfills you, whether it's, and again, whatever that is, whether it's adventures, whether it's family, whether it's mine's with my family. I mean, if I'm not here, I'm with my family, period. And that's kind of what fulfills me. And then the only other thing too, tactic for me in terms of stress is, I think sometimes we have stress because we lose perspective. All right. The reality is I have one of the greatest jobs in the world. I love to coach football. I get to do it at one of the best places in the world. How many people would change jobs with me in a heartbeat? And so I think sometimes when we stress, we've lost an appreciation for the opportunities that we have in the moment. And So I think when we have that appreciation, not that it's not important that we do well, but I think at the same time, the stress from getting it done can go away, and the joy of just kind of the process of it sets in. So those have been kind of the things, the mindsets and that I've tried to keep, and a few things that have helped along the way.
Hi, thank you so much for coming in. In this class, we talk a lot about performing well in like high stakes, high visibility positions. USC has seen a lot of QB turnover, and I think everyone can kind of agree that QB is one of the most highest visibility positions, especially for people who aren't involved in the recruiting and athletic process. I was wondering, as a former QB yourself, if you can speak to how that pressure and visibility might contribute to that turnover and what you're planning on doing in your new position to combat that.
I'll talk to you about a job after class. Well done. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so you're talking about more in terms of here in that position. Yeah, it's a high visibility position. I mean, they all are to a sense at a school like this, but that one more than most. That's part of why I've always, even when I became the head coach, I never stopped coaching that position. I don't pass it off onto anybody. I don't, I'm not kind of the figurehead. I've been there with them all the time because they are that critical to the success. And we've been able to have a little bit of success with the quarterbacks that we've had in the past. So I think we built up a reputation where our guys believe in what we're doing. You've got to handle those guys different. It's everything with the quarterback plays out on such a public stage, as you said. And I think the psyche of those guys is probably more important than anybody on the team because of that. And so I think we talked about earlier, like different employees, you're going to handle different ways, different recruits, you're going to handle different ways. And I think you got to understand the differences in that position, and probably as much as any, because there's one on the field at a time and they are so influential. You got to make sure that you bring the right guys in. You have to have a system of belief in the way that you train them. They've got to have belief in what you're doing, and that's where some of the success we've had in the past does help. And then I think the other thing is you've got to surround them with a great team. And so many people get caught up. I mean, the reality in our sport is if you do well, the head coach and the quarterback are going to get way too much credit, and if you don't do well, the head coach and the quarterback are going to get way too much blame. I mean, that's just the nature of it. So I think being able to protect these guys a little bit where they can just grow as a normal member of the team, help set them up for success as best that you can. And then again, for me, one of the keys has been staying very hands-on involved with it and not passing that on to somebody else. So yeah, great question.
He's coached a couple of Heisman winners and Heisman runner-up, all pros. Good question.
Hi, Coach Riley. Thanks
Hello.
so much for being here tonight. My name's Hannah. I'm so excited for the season ahead. I'm sure every single person in here is. Football is a game of numbers. You can measure success very easily, third down conversions, yards down the field. And obviously it's really easy to measure success, but as a coach, it can be a little bit different. What's your metric for success?
Great question. Yeah, I think success is defined in so many different ways. I think the metric for me for success is not necessarily numbers. I think you get a group of people together, and you as a coach have got to assess, all right, like what is our ceiling, right? Like what this group of people, what is the best that we can possibly be? And then as we measure that, or as we go through a season or time together, I think you're able to sit back and say, all right, we are meeting our potential. Like we are getting everything out of these players, everything out of this program that we possibly can right now. And if you're doing that, that is success. Now, to continue to have the results change, you're going to continue the people are going to change, and you continue to try to recruit better, or bring in better staff members, or elevate maybe the potential. But I think the initial success with the people you have in the beginning is absolutely, what is our potential, and are we reaching that in every area? And I would say the other metric in our game a lot of times is like, what are these guys doing when they walk out of our program? If we're doing it right within our program, these guys are going to be successful when they leave here. I mean, if we're truly doing this right. And so I think that the two I mean, obviously, everybody's going to see the wins and losses on the field, but I think if you take care of those things, then the wins and losses, the results tend to take care of themselves.
Notice that wins and losses didn't come first.
Hi, my name is Lakshay Botra, and I'm currently a sophomore. So one question I had is, what are your personal goals right now, like other than professional goals, and how do you plan to like achieve those goals? And during your professional career, like which were one of the hardest decisions you had to make, and how did you make that?
We covered the one, was coming here one of the hardest decisions you ever made?
Oh, yeah, coming here was,
So that one you covered. What was the first question?
yeah, that was definitely hard.
Like, what are like some of his personal goals right now in life, and how does he
Personal
plan to-
goals in life outside of football.
You know, I want to, I mean, the first ones I think about right away are, you know, I'm a father. I've got 2 daughters, 9 and 5. So them having a good life, them being educated, them being exposed and ready for when it's kind of their time to step out is I would say definitely number one for me. I think for our players to respect kind of what they've been a part of and to be able to have the personal relationships within the business is, I think, personally a big goal for me. Yeah, and then like when I die, I don't want anything left. Like like life's too short. Like life is way too short. And when I die, I want to be like, man, I left it all out there. You know, I did all the different things I wanted to do. I experienced the things I wanted to experience. I wasn't afraid to step out there. I wasn't afraid to take risks, experience new things. Like I want to feel like kind of complete at that point. And so personally, I think I've always kind of been a very experiential person. That's always kind of been my, even since I was younger, I always wanted to just go do all these kind of crazy things that some people thought, you know, coming, especially from a small town like I did, maybe weren't totally realistic. And I mean, up to this point, I've had a chance to do a lot of really, really cool things, but I just kind of always keep thinking about the next things. I want to empty it, man. I want to be, when I'm done, I want to be done. So yeah, great question.
That's a great question. Questions from students in class right now, if you don't mind, students who are in this class. There you go. I'm not going to discriminate, but I want to make sure that you're heard.
Hi, so to preface, I'm not a really big football fan, but I'm a tour guide at the admission center, and a lot of parents come in and they're like, Lincoln Riley's gonna change it up, like that's why I want my son to come here. So I just wanted to let you know that. But I also saw this thing on TikTok that was talking about the girlfriend transfer portal theory. And it talks about how football players transfer to where their girlfriends study. And like, I guess you could use Keaton Slovis as an example, Levi Williams as an example, there's more. But I kind of wanted to ask you, like, how much do you take that into consideration? Or do you even think that has weight at all or anything? I'm curious, I think the world wants to know.
Love it. So you're our new recruiting coordinator. Congratulations. That's awesome. Well, boy, I could go a lot of ways with this answer right now. Listen, you know, these guys, you know, everybody sees them on TV, right? And sometimes a lot of people forget, like these guys are like humans too, right? Like they have lives, they have relationships, families, girlfriends, all those things. So they certainly are a factor. I mean, kind of all joking aside, like they are a factor. And I think sometimes that we forget kind of the human side when we see these people on TV, we just see them as this football player, this great athlete, or this great actor, this great businessman. And like, no, there's actually, they're all humans just like we are too. So, but yeah, it's a great question. It's a relevant question. The girlfriends typically win. I know that. So yeah, the girlfriends are undefeated. That's undefeated forever, never, never. So hopefully we have a few of them on our side as Trojans, right?
Couple questions more. I promise we get them out of here at a reasonable time, so let's hurry up.
Hi, Coach Riley. So my question to you is, games are won at the line of scrimmage. So what would your response be to the critics who say our big men in the trenches can't compete with the likes of Alabama and Georgia?
It's a business.
Man, that was straight to business. Yeah. Like that's like an LA Times question. Yeah, I mean, I agree that games are heavily influenced by how good you are in the front seven. We've had a pretty good track record of being really good there. I like the current roster that we have there, but you know, that'll be part of our program as we build this. So we've had a history of being pretty good there, and there's a lot of them out here, a lot of great ones out here on the West Coast that we plan on keeping right here at home. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. We've been, I think this team will be very good at it. I think we'll continue to improve in the future.
Excited to watch.
We've lost a lot of athletes from California to other schools. You're gonna own California.
Yeah, not for long, not for long.
Hey Lincoln, thank you for coming. So kind of back to NIL, have you seen any deals that are potentially contingent on how many wins a program gets or how many years a student decides to stay at a program? Because it seems to me like with NIL now and the transfer portal, what is stopping a player from, you know, going to school like Texas A&M or, you know, something like that, and then getting a year's worth of salary and then leaving to somewhere where they actually want to play? Have you seen anything like that, or do you think that's going to be a change within the structure of NIL?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, the market is so new that some of those things are happening as we speak. I think it's been a topic among a lot of schools right now. I mean, it's like any business contract, right? There's got to be some give and take on both sides. There's got to be an investment level on both sides. And so I do think that's in the middle of happening right now. I have seen some deals that are certainly contingent on that. And listen, you could argue that every deal is contingent on wins and losses. At some point, people are not going to support a program that is not being successful. I mean, that's just the nature of this sport. But individually for players, it's starting to happen that way. And aside from a major rule change, it's going to continue to head that way because people are not going to want to invest money. I mean, again, you guys don't want to run your own company. You're not going to give somebody a big guarantee unless you've got a guarantee on your side of it too. It's bad business. And you've seen some outliers here in the beginning because it's new. Professor referred to it as the Wild West. You get people doing some things without thinking or the market truly setting itself, but we think there's going to be a big market correction. A lot of people are going to just toss a lot of money away, and people are going to learn from it and get smarter as time goes on.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for coming tonight. So kind of a two-parter. To back on Professor speaking about, obviously, recruiting, you know, you obviously deal with some of the greatest athletes in the world, Kyler Murray, Baker, now Caleb Williams. What is that stress like? Okay, I'm basically adopting a child for 4 years and having to take them through their career and build them up into a career. And then secondly, is your favorite part about recruiting going to Twitter and putting up the peace signs to anticipate and annoy your entire school base? Because I absolutely love it when you do that. And I'm like, oh my God, let's go.
Yeah, first question. Yeah, get a chance to coach maybe an elite athlete that's got a bright future. I mean, I love it. I mean, I want to coach the best. I mean, listen, part of this is, you know, you got to believe in yourself too. And you got to believe that, you know what, yeah, this is a really talented athlete. And I believe that, you know, myself, the coach, or our program, the program is the best program to help them get there. And it takes a lot of hard work to be able to feel like that because it is a big responsibility when you know these guys have enormous potential, and again, it's being played out on such a public stage. But I think you got to embrace the opportunity and the opportunity for greatness, that if you do it the right way. Yeah, I love putting out the fight on. I mean, that's always a good sign. So maybe I'll put one out for you tonight. Never know.
We might take a group picture at the end here. What, do you have time for a couple more?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, thank you. How many student athletes are on a football team?
85 scholarship, and then with walk-ons total, depending on time of year, but you're talking in the 110 to 120 total.
How many scholarship players do you have right now?
60. We went through spring with 69. Right now we've got 71. Yeah.
It's like having a lot of money in the bank. You've got some money to spend if you can find the right people. It's incredible. All right, a couple more questions. I'm gonna go her first.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name's Lola. As someone having been on the flip side of this as an athlete, and now somebody who works with athletes, How do you go about inciting motivation in people you know have it in them to perform, but don't seem to be performing the way you would like them to? How do you push them through those ruts and get them through those tough times?
Yeah, I think our number one job as leaders is to inspire. I mean, that's our number one job. We gotta, again, it goes back, you have to push people, right? You have to hold people accountable. But I think the second, when you're a leader, and like you guys think about it, any teacher you've had, coach you've had, mentor that you've had, if you've ever had somebody that was leading you and all of a sudden you knew like at some point that you got a sense they didn't believe in you, like you were done, like you're tuned out. And then think about the ones that you've had that maybe believed in you and saw greatness in you that you couldn't see yourself. And what that does to kind of keep you going, that belief can kind of carry you through when maybe you don't believe in yourself or when you are going through a rough patch. So I think always keeping the perspective of our number one job is to inspire. And then past that, I sincerely believe that people at their core want to be held accountable and want to be pushed. They don't always show it that way, but I think most people at their core want that. And I think the second thing is you cannot be afraid to hold people accountable. I learned that lesson really well. I got a great story. If I got a couple of minutes on it, but it's a pretty funny story. I had a receiver at Texas Tech my first year. I got the receiver job, full-time receiver job at a pretty major university when I was 23 years old. A lot of like national local media were kind of dumbfounded that coach would give that job to a 23-year-old. I was very young, very green, and probably didn't deserve it. It was very fortunate, kind of right place, right time. Well, I inherited a redshirt freshman receiver named Michael Crabtree. A lot of people think he maybe is the greatest college football receiver in the history of college football. So we're going along that year, and Mike is doing well. I mean, he's having an unbelievable season for any football people. His first 6 games as a redshirt freshman, he had 17 touchdown catches in his first 6 games. I mean, we're talking just ridiculous, unbelievable year. So we get to the end of the year and we're getting ready to go play Baylor on the road. And it's like to the point, like if he has 2 more good games, he's going to win the Blitnikoff Award, which is the award goes to the best receiver in college football at the time, like at Texas Tech, not a huge, major program. That was a big deal. So we had a deal a Thursday before practice where he did not go to class. And we kind of had a standard kind of punishment there at Texas Tech. We had a sand pit out there that our guys trained in. And if you didn't go to class, you had to roll in the sand pit. I don't know, it sounds brutal, but it is what it is. All right. You had to roll in the sand pit. So after practice, I called him out about missing the class, and he challenged me. He's like, I said, you got to go to the pit. He said, I'm not rolling in the pit. And I was right there at that moment. All right. You're kind of like, all right, I've got a guy that's the best player on the team. He's probably going to win the Blitnikoff. All right. But in this moment, if you don't stand your ground and hold them accountable, it'll be tough to ever do it again. And it'll be important for this kid, and he's a great kid, but it will be important for this kid later on in life too, not just ball. So with a few choice words mixed in between, I said, you are going to the pit or your ass isn't playing. All right. So, and I just walked off. All right. Our facility at Texas Tech was your office is backed up to the practice field. So I immediately went into my office and got down on my knees and prayed that he would get in the sand pit so that we could take him to the game. And so I'm just peeking out the window, and he kind of stands around, and I'm like, he's not going to get in the pit. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This, he's not going to, this is going to be a bad story. And here I am, the 23-year-old that couldn't handle the player. And now I don't take him to the game. My whole group just heard me tell him he can't play if he doesn't. Like, this is a disaster. I'm thinking I shouldn't have done it. I should have just, folded whatever, just said, all right, you're fine. We'll get you next time. And then I looked down and he got in the pit and I said, thank you, God. And he rolled. And he rolled. He probably scored a bunch of touchdowns the next week and won the Blitnikoff. So, but point being, you can't inspire, but then you can't be afraid to hold them accountable, no matter who they are, because people want that in the end, even if they push you some.
You want to hand the bike right, but two more. We're coming. Are you in the class? Yeah. Okay, we got you. Of course you are. Just making sure. I want to be loyal to the students that are here all semester. We'll get you the mic in a second.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Coach Riley, for coming out. It's really looking forward to this next season. I have one question around like mental health in terms of like high performance. And so like I know like athletes they're out there training, they're out there working hard, but like what is like your kind of key points to like maintaining like strong mental health like habits and like in high performance environments like business, like sports and other environments like that?
Yeah, I think you have to train that as much as you do for an athlete, as much as you do your body. I mean, you've got to, I think the keys are, in my opinion, one, you've got to surround yourself with people that watch out for you, that you will listen to, that are going to tell you sometimes what you don't want to hear. They're going to hold you accountable, that are going to check up on you. I think surrounding yourself with the right people is a huge part of it. And then I think the second part, you got to continually challenge yourself. I think sometimes, like I've seen in mental health, obviously issues can manifest themselves in a lot of different ways. One of the ones that we deal with a lot is guys getting burned out, demotivated. However you figure it, a lot of times what we find out is not necessarily, they're not necessarily demotivated, like they've lost kind of that sense of like challenging themselves and a sense of like, am I getting better? Am I truly making progress? Right? It can drive you insane when you feel like you're putting all this work into something and you're not like seeing or feeling those results. And so I think people that can hold you accountable, people that can watch after you, but also, am I in an environment and am I constantly being challenged? Like I used the example earlier, we brought in Tim Kite, and one of the things is like as the head coach, you're responsible for coaching everybody, right? You got to coach the players, the team, the staff, everybody. Like, who's coaching me? And I've got some key guys on my staff, some key people that can come in and shut the door and say anything to me at any time. And a lot of times I need that, but also, do you have people in place to kind of help you grow, challenge you, but also kind of watch out for you and check up on you as well? Because I think one of the big realizations for mental health is we can't do it by ourselves. We can't do it by ourselves, no matter how strong you are. It does not matter who you are. And if you don't have people in place to have and create that support system, you're setting up a system or a situation where you're going to fail eventually. Like, I haven't met the person yet that's strong enough to do it by themselves. So you better set up a system for success.
Thank you. And at USC, we have 625, 650 student athletes and a team of sports psychologists led by Robin Schofield. And that helps student athletes from high performance on one side to, I don't want to play anymore and struggling. So we're very lucky to have those resources. All right, last question. We're going to stick around, take a quick picture with Coach, we'll send him off. And we're going to ask him what we can do to support the team as Trojans. All right, get a good one.
You've had some moments where you've had to make major decisions in a really short amount of time. And a lot of people are looking at you and wondering what choice you're gonna make. As a leader, what is going on through your mind in those moments, and how do you go about making those decisions when you don't have a lot of time on your side, but you have so much pressure?
So would you direct that question more to it's like in a game as things are moving quickly, or outside of games? In game?
I would say in a game, I think so.
Yeah. No, there's so many. I mean, there's over thousands of decisions that you make within a game, especially as a head coach when you call the plays like I do, because there's a little bit more to it with that. One, you trust your preparation. I mean, everybody hears all the horror stories of how many hours we all spend up there during the season and all we do, and every one of them is true. And you do that because in the moment, you're going to have seconds to make those decisions, and the preparation has to be so good. You have to be so mentally in tune throughout the flow of a game, because it is so unpredictable. I mean, that's the one predictable thing about football is it's crazy and it's unpredictable, and every one of them is different. You got to trust the people around you. You've got to delegate what you need to delegate and hire and prepare the right people to do it. And then I think the other thing I would say with those big decisions, especially as they're happening fast and with limited time, it tests the efficiency of the program you've set up. right? Like one thing we do as coaches, and it's a football game, but you can probably apply it, is we take ourselves through mock games all the time. Like we test out everything and every person's responsibility down to, I mean, you would be surprised some of the details. But when you are prepared, when you are organized, when you're efficient, and when you have a team of people that you trust, the amount of mistakes goes down, the organization goes up, you tend to make less mistakes, and maybe feel more prepared in that moment where you're just reacting. And so yeah, I think at our best, that's what it feels like. It feels like a well-oiled machine that we're just clipping off, but it takes a ton of organization, a ton of preparation to get to where you feel that good about it.
Good question. What can we do? And I'm going to probably say something that you may not be able to say. What can we do as fans, as students of the universities, as about to be alums, to support the program in addition to going to games?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, I mean, you know, going to games is important, and listen, we understand that that's the flip side of that is we got to have a product there that you all want to come see and be excited about. But let's be honest. I mean, part of your college experience is being able to have that fun with your classmates and some of those experiences that you'll never get back. And so hopefully we can create something over there that people are dying to be a part of, because I've been in those stadiums, been lucky to be in a few of them where when the atmosphere is like that, it's a surreal experience for every single person in there. And this one obviously has loads of potential. So, you know, I think in terms of support, it's a good question. I mean, a lot of you all are going to have a chance to support this in terms of, I think in terms of continuing to be successful in your own rights. I mean, you guys are our best ambassadors. I mean, we can go sell USC because USC is phenomenal. It's phenomenal because of the people that have been here before. In the future, it's going to be phenomenal because of you people, and all the things that you're going to go out and do. So go out and have success, you know, stay loyal to this place and loyal to the people that helped you and the places that helped you become a part of it. Yeah, and then I think, yeah, just enjoy your experiences here. And I know that our team, our guys, you know, myself, that's why I want to come over here tonight. Like we want to be a part of you all. We don't want it to be, well, the football team's over here and the students are over here and academic and athletic. Like the times this becomes the most fun for all of us is when like it's all integrated. Like we're all kind of invested in it together, and we all kind of relish in the successes and the joy and the fun and the great moments together. So we got to all do our part in creating that. But that can happen here. I mean, this thing can go from being something that maybe here in the last few years that people weren't that jacked up about or didn't want to be a part about to have one of the coolest experiences that you'll have in college. And so it's our job to make it that way. And obviously, you know, we'll appreciate it and want to be able to enjoy that with you all.
I want to even be more specific. When you're here as a student, you should be at every game on time and through the fourth quarter. You don't leave no matter what the score is. When you leave here, it's the same thing. Now, I've missed one USC home football game since I graduated from law school. So that's before all of you were born. Well before. And that used to sound cool. Now it just sounds old. But I've missed a few weddings. I've got a few close. It's 6 or 7 home games, guys. This isn't baseball. This isn't 80 games at the Dodgers. This is 6 or 7 games plus a bowl game and then travel to Northern California. I've seen it rocking and I've seen it not. USC fans, as much as we like to say we're the best fans in the universe, can't be fair weather anymore. You guys really should make it a point from this point on, investing in this team, in this university, that you will be there, whether they're 12-1, 12-0, or 6-6. I've been through some of those years. It's actually the experience of going to the game, supporting people like Raylan and friends that are in your class. You're there supporting students. You know, people boo the coaches, everything. You're supporting the students. They're 18 to 22. Go there, be there every time, scream your lungs out, because that's the Coliseum hasn't been an advantage, a home field advantage for a while. We used to never lose here. That's the way it's going to be again. We'll give them some patience and some time. This is not easy to turn around with 60-something scholarship players right now, bringing in a new culture, new staff, all of that stuff. It's unbelievable. So let's give them patience, but let's really, really invest in this program and make sure that we're all there on Saturday. September 3rd, beat the Owls against Rice home, and let's just really turn the Coliseum around. To thank Coach tonight and Clark, and being a part of this program, to see there's so many new faces that I haven't met, only on Zoom, but some people who have been here for a while and have just been instrumental. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank Cheryl Taplin. Cheryl, please come out and say hello.
Cheryl.
Cheryl. Cheryl, Gavin, Lenny, the people who are still around. Clark, I'm so excited that you're here and to meet all the staff, and thank you for doing this. I know a lot of classes would have loved to have Coach here. Let's do a quick picture and a video fight on, and we'll send it to everyone on social media. So Coach, why don't you turn around here?
You got it.
All right. And why don't you can take your mic off so you don't take that with you. That's not a gift for all right. All right, turn around this way. You can get your phones out too if you want. Yeah?
Selfie with selfie. Come on.
Cheryl? You want to get in here, Clark? Come on, you got the colors. All right. We're gonna do a couple takes. Everyone fingers up, fight on. First, we take a couple throws. Nice little watch. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hold on. 3.
Belasco, you get in it too. I can take it.
All right, hold on. We're gonna on 3, fight on, and I want to hear it loud, like it's the Coliseum. 1, 2, 3. Fight on! Beat the Owls! Let's go! Let's go! Have a great week. All right.